That's good. Let me see. Yeah, that helps a little.
Yeah, I think so. Calvin Castine coming to you with part 2 of the Ozzie Sweet Story. We have Judy Castine behind the camera again. And we're in York Harbor, Maine at the studio of Elizabethtown, New Russia area native. Although he wasn't born there, he was raised there and grew up most of his life in the Elizabethtown, New Russia area. Mr. Ozzie Sweet, who went on to become one of the most prominent photographers in the United States. And he's very graciously agreed to us coming down here and chatting with him. We hope you saw part 1, 2 hours and 3 minutes, nonstop, of Ozzie talking about some of his experiences in life and in photography. This is the first part. We're going to be continuing here by going to New Russia and seeing some of the places that Ozzie remembers from his youth. But we're starting it here in York Harbor in Ozzie's studio. And this has been your studio for about 3 years now, Ozzie?
Yes, just about 3 years, yeah. Three winters.
3 winters.
Yeah. You know, we it was just thick woods and all, and we had 3 days of blasting because it's all ledge and rock and everything, but it gives me a good feeling, you know, it's built on such a good foundation. You know, and I shouldn't have, should be thinking about retiring. It's a little bigger studio even than we had in a big barn in New Hampshire, but I'm not planning on retiring.
Well, you're much like I mentioned to you in the first show, 2 buddies of mine, Sid Calci and Ozzie Sweet, who Sid is 84 this year, and not Ozzie Sweet, I'm sorry, Arto Monaco. Arto Monaco will be 90 this November.
Wow.
And Arto's, you know, going out every day doing stuff, very artistic man, and Sid's very much active and doing drawings every day. So when you stop moving, it's time to
yeah, that's right.
time to buy that plot, but you're not ready to buy that plot yet, right?
Right.
Okay, we've got a collection here of just some of the many photos that Ozzie has taken over the years. We start in the corner here. Who's this grizzled old fellow here in the corner here?
Oh yeah, that one time Diane was away, and I had a lot of caption writing to do, and then not going to be seeing anybody, and my beard got longer, and I thought, well, before I shaved, I'd do a self-portrait. And the reason is I'm supposed to be an old rough old cowhand there, and I love cowboy. I have always got a couple of cowboy novels going, reading, not writing. And so I think I fit I worked years ago in film, so it was fun to do that.
I got a hat that looks just like that.
Do you?
Okay, we've got a picture here in a lifeboat.
Yeah,
inflatable lifeboat. What's this?
it was a raft. And when an aircraft would ditch, you know, come down, they had those rafts. Well, that was a series they had during the war. They had a series of Someone Talked. In other words, don't talk. Don't keep any plans for any action a secret.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so I did that, and it was used as a poster. But those were just friends of mine, and I had more fun tearing up the uniform. I had the scissors, and I cut, and I had oil and grease, and I had everything to charcoal. I had everything to make them look like hell. And so don't you think I did a good job?
You did, yeah, good
And
job.
and you notice they're not professionals. They were just friends of mine in the service, of course. But if you'll study their faces, they're all doing a great job of acting, every one of them. But between exposures, they were cracking up laughing because they all looked so ridiculous to one another. But that was another example of a photo illustration, you know, where you like start with an empty canvas and you create it.
Now, this is something you did in the military. Now, Ozzie's career began in the military, basically, and then from there, after he got out of the military, it went on to great things, and sports was a big part of that. Newsweek was his first assignment. He worked for Newsweek, and then freelanced, and sports were a big part of that. Here's a picture we've seen in a book that Ozzie published called Legends of the Field. This is 5 famous Brooklyn Dodgers from the...
They were referred to as the Boys of Summer.
Yes.
You know, and then that's a relative, distant relative over there, that close up. That says is relative through marriage. Yeah. But one time when I was on the staff of Newsweek, there was a gorilla in the Chicago Zoo called Bushman. Really a famous gorilla, beautiful, big, handsome guy. And they sent me all the way out to Chicago from New York to photograph that gorilla for a Newsweek cover. And the way he looked at me, he didn't look like he trusted me at all. But they had those big tires, and you know how the tire, it's not an inner tube, but a tire, he could pull it out like that, stretch a tire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, strong guy. So I didn't get in the cage with him.
Let him play with your camera?
No.
Okay, now you've got Tommy Davis being greeted. Again, this was one we covered in the previous episode. And there's Louis Aparicio, a White Sox shortstop.
Yeah.
And if Judy can kind of, we'll move over here and let Judy come on the side of me here. And you've got this picture you're telling us about with the collie jumping over the fence. That took you a long time to get that.
Well, right.
That posed.
Yeah, I had those rails. I kept those rails, and I found a place where in the field where there were no trees, so I'd have sky, and then it dropped off, and so I put the rails in place right there, the posts and rails, and then the owner of the collie, she was busy during the day, but in the evenings, it was during the summer, in the evening she'd come over and practice with the dog, teaching the dog to jump over. That's quite a jump for a dog.
Yes.
And she did that for about a week, and she said, okay, Ozzie, the dog's ready. So I had this model or not a model, she's just a pretty girl, who was very athletic and looked nice, pretty figure and everything. And told her, so that one late afternoon, we got together and, gave the action instructions, had my camera in place and everything. Fine. Both the girl would jump beautifully and the dog would jump beautifully. But the dog didn't like being close. The dog wanted to jump the rail about 8 or 10 feet away from the girl. And there was no way of getting the dog to jump any closer. And has to be close. That's the whole idea. So we had to start all over again. And so for another week, the girl came and practiced jumping with the dog. And finally, after a couple, almost 2 weeks of practicing, I got that picture.
So in one split-second snapshot, but all that work. First you had to come up with a concept, and then...
wanted to look like a lucky candid.
Yeah. Now, I want to show this picture here, Judy, with the swimmer and the girl on the... maybe Ozzie can prop it up for you. This is a very tough picture to... just kind of hold it, Ozzie, and you'll just... There you go.
I can put it right there.
There you go. This is kind of a tough picture for the exposure here, right? You've got two different light.
In a way, there isn't too much difference down in Florida in this Rainbow Springs that was taken, because the water is so clear. You can only use my semi-sub. That's something I created to get shots like that, where you have split in half, half water and half above the surface. You're seeing the underside of the surface, as you'll notice there. That's the underside, not the top side. But it just I have some other shots downstairs that show that off even better, down in the gallery. But that's taken with some equipment that I created and had made, and I call it the semi-sub. And the camera fits into it, and you can shoot split-level things like that. And I've done quite a few things with it through the years.
So unlike a photographer who goes out to a ball game or to a news event and snaps a picture of what's happening, most of your photos are created in your mind first, and then so much like an artist would paint a picture, you're doing the same thing here with a photograph.
Well, you think of you kind of can think of it as like starting with an empty canvas, and you just put it together. Like one one fellow did say one time, said, Ozzie, you don't take pictures, you make pictures. In a sense, that's what photo illustration is. And we don't, a lot of people like the purists that never photograph anything that isn't right there and photographed as it happens. They feel that it isn't honest and all, but it's a photographic illustration. It's just that instead of using oils or watercolor and all, I'm creating a picture with a camera, one of the tools.
Right. Well, anytime you have somebody pose,
Yeah,
it is no longer a candid photo.
that's right. That's right.
So if you're going to have them pose, why not give them to pose
That's right.
to your liking?
Yeah.
Now, around here, you'll look around, and we've covered it. We've seen pictures of Albert Einstein and so many unique people that you have photographed over the years.
Hmm.
Now, you've got a little bit of a studio here that you use to
Yeah,
set up animals. You have pets,
Yeah,
little pet photography for calendars. And
Yep, build sets there. You're staying so close to the animals always, because that's, right in tight, that you don't have to decorate a very large area, just a small little area. And I can set it up and make it bring flowers and vegetation in and grass. I get the rolls of grass, that you can get grass and use that and create a lawn, and I can make it look like outside. But what's nice about it is that if it's a rainy day or a snowy day or anything like that, I can thumb my nose at the weather.
it's still spring or summer right in here.
Right,
Right?
that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
That close up.
Now, cameras you've used. You've got a little collection up above here
Yes, that's part of it. Quite a large
on the
collection.
top shelf.
Yeah, a couple of those cameras are over 100 years old. And that's a Graflex. You're familiar with the old-time Graflex with a curtain shutter, the one with a high.
tall one.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, some folding Kodaks. And then the famous old Speed Graphic. That's one of the first cameras I used.
Which one is that?
That's the one way over to the
On the
left,
left,
the
far
last
left?
one over,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
That's
You
one of the
shot
first
that.
cameras that you.
Well, that was one of that was a very popular camera when I first started. See, these cameras, when I first started, there weren't all the Japanese cameras. There were just a few 35 millimeters. They were German optics and so on. There were just a handful of 35 millimeter cameras. Now there's dozens and dozens of. But if you would like to really see a little bit more about the old cameras, are right in here.
Okay, we'll wander out and see if Judy can follow us. You got to. Inside of here, you've got some.
Yes, well, here's the very first.
Okay, why don't you come between us, Judy, so you can.
Here's the very first camera I ever had, Argus C3, $66.50. I was 17.
That was a lot of money back then.
Oh, it sure was. And see, it says here, the world's most popular 35 millimeter camera, and it's built like a Mack truck, built to
Solid.
last. And then one of my other first cameras is the Rolleiflex. That was before Hasselblads. Now we have the whole Hasselblad system, but that was before that. And here's that same camera right there in Alaska. And here's the Speed Graphic. Those were the two cameras. And this is a collection of hand-carved stuff from Alaska. I spent one whole summer from May right through the end of September in Alaska. One here, and then these are, of course, are all antique. Isn't that beautiful, the woodwork there? But here's something rather interesting. Here's the little teeny box camera, and here's a big postcard size. But this is sensitized paper that's never been opened. But of course, it had an expiration date, and the expiration date is December 1899. Do you think it's still good?
We'll never find out because it's
No,
never going to be open.
That's right, yeah. But then there's this underwater camera down there, and another Graflex. And there's still some of them packed away upstairs.
So you collect cameras? These aren't.
Oh, yeah.
These aren't all just ones you've used. It's the ones that you've collected, or
Oh,
did you
no.
buy them and use them because?
It's a collection.
Yeah.
Only a few of them I used.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go get a book. We can stop the taping, and we'll go get a book, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next.
Oh.
Okay, Judy's got frozen on there a picture of your stepfather, correct?
Yeah.
Hold that book there, Ozzie. This is you as a youngster.
Stepdad, Hardy Sweet.
Hardy Sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's back in that picture was taken in Russia, was it?
That was taken in the farm in New Russia. Yeah.
Okay. Now on the wall here, we've also got some of your family here. We've got your son,
My son, yeah.
Blair.
Yeah, Blair, he owns a restaurant in Hong Kong.
Okay. Now this
Married
little-
to a beautiful Oriental girl.
Oh.
I mean beautiful. You know, when they're pretty, they're
Oh,
pretty.
yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And then the little girl
girl.
reading to her kitty cats, that's my oldest daughter, Pamela, and she creates toys for the 3 largest toy companies.
Oh,
Yep, she's busy as it can be all the time. Thank
and you got a
goodness.
third.
Yeah, and the
child?
third, yeah, she's out in San Francisco, and she and her husband own a photo lab out there. They're going to be here in September, and it's my birthday. Because it's 85, they feel it's sort of special, so they're coming.
Every 5 years they come visit you.
Yeah, right. Everybody.
And you got a picture of Roger Maris and
Yeah.
now.
Oh, that's just a.
How about the picture of the 2 people by
well,
the
that's
seashore?
yeah, that's a shot I took for the file, and it was used by that magazine, photo magazine, that's published in about 6 languages. It's published in Germany, and it's published. It's a very popular photographic magazine.
Now, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Now, does that translate into every language? Is it exactly 1,000 in every language?
Oh, I'm sure it's close to it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, in your hand here, we have one of the 18. Now, I hope you've seen the first episode because we covered the sport magazine, and we'll get into a couple more of the magazines that Ozzie has published, and we get to Elizabethtown and New Russia. But you've done 18 of these wildlife books, basically for children, right?
Yeah, they call
They're
them
not-
for young readers.
Yeah, young readers, not for 33 and 4-year-olds, but
No.
for young readers
Right.
with lots of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was the same team. Jack Scott and I did all of them together.
I've got in my collection, I've got one on buffalo, I've got one on turtles, loggerhead turtles,
Yeah.
and one on, I can't remember what the other thing was, but I've got 3 in my collection, and this one here is one that you did on
Yeah,
seagulls.
Seagulls, right.
And-
Right here on Smutty Nose Island, which is just off the shore a little bit. Get there by ferry, and it's about 8 miles offshore, I think.
Now, you could say that very close by here from where we are, there are a bunch of seagulls, and if we go out there and throw some
Yeah.
bread to them,
Yeah.
they'll put on a little show for
Oh,
us.
I know some of them personally.
Oh, you
I
do?
know, I've photographed them for years. Sure, some of the older gulls, yeah.
Uh-huh.
They know me when they see me coming. Yeah.
Oh.
You'll see when I get out there how they rush over to me.
Oh,
Yeah. yeah.
automatically, no, there's that guy.
Yeah, that's right.
The guy with the bread.
They're old friends. Some of them have passed on, but I knew their offspring, so the friendship continues.
Well, I hope you're not as bad as my buddy Sid Couchy, because he's got chickadees that'll come eat off his hat. Now,
Oh, that's good. That's great.
he'll sit there and chirp, and they'll come, he'll put stuff in his hat, and they'll sit there.
I think it's wonderful.
But they won't eat off you. Well, you got to throw it to them.
No, I throw it right down like that, though, and they usually come up, but they're a little skitterish, But what's fun is that sometimes when there's certain ones there, we have a thing, and they'll fly around, they'll come down and dip down, and then they'll go up, and then I throw it, and they catch it in the air.
Catch it in the air.
Yeah, then the same one will go right around, 2 or 3 of them do that. We have a great time, and say they come swinging, and then they'll come right in, and they dip, and I throw it, and they go zip, catch it. You'll see how they.
And you've
yeah.
trained, so you've
Yeah.
trained these.
Oh, yeah. I spent hours training them.
Okay, I think we're going to close here
Yeah.
and pick up on the beach. Okay, we have come out to,
Nubble Light.
what is it? Nubble
Light.
Nubble Light. We're still in York Harbor.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Well, it's actually York Beach.
York Beach.
Yeah.
Now, there's 3 Yorks, is that
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
York Harbor, and York Beach.
Yeah. Come on. It's about 4 miles from us.
A beautiful, beautiful spot right on the ocean here, and we're looking for seagulls, and they got tired of waiting for you, I
Well,
guess,
I know
Ozzie.
it. I contacted the head seagull, and they promised to have them here, but they must. I don't know what happened.
I think we kept you too long,
You
and
can't-
they got
yeah,
tired.
You can't rely on seagulls.
Well, they
That's
got
all
tough
there is to it.
unions,
I know it. That's right. Right. Yeah, this lighthouse, the Double Light, they claim it's the most photographed and painted lighthouse on the Maine coast. That's what I guess it must be, or they wouldn't write about it.
And it's a working lighthouse, and
It's
you've used it for 30 years in
yeah,
your photos?
Oh, yeah, off and on for 30 years. So, all different times of the day and everything. And it's late in the day you get some great things. And then at Christmas time, they light it all up. It's beautiful. And they just have that boat, and they have that little thing there to pulley the supplies and things across. It's all automatic now. And of course there's a lot of tourists here. Boy, I'll tell you, this not yet, but we would have been lucky to find a place to park if we come out during.
I can't imagine. Here it is. It's June 6th. We didn't mention that in this show. It's D-Day, 2003, and we drove by here before we went to your place. We got pulled into town about 1, and we just drove by here and wasted half an hour, and we couldn't believe the number of folks here in the middle of the afternoon at 1 o'clock or whatever on a Friday afternoon in June. I mean, this is early June. It's just amazing the number of people who are here already.
Right.
Of all ages.
In the wintertime, it can be snow and cold, and the surfers with their wetsuits, black wetsuits, are out here.
So this doesn't freeze. This doesn't freeze, then. It's just
middle of the winter. I don't know how they do it. We have one nephew that does it, but he's still around, so I guess they survive.
But it certainly is a beautiful sight. I can see why you pulled up your roots in Francistown, New Hampshire, a few years ago, and decided to plant yourself here. It's really a beautiful spot.
I really love it.
So we're looking forward, Ozzie, to your trip. We've been trying for 5 years to get you up in Essex County, and Ozzie's going to be, well, by the time you see this, because this will be part of that tape, Ozzie's going to be at the Antique Gas Engine Show in July, and then we'll be meeting with him then, and that's what you see from this point on will be part of that tape as we go around to New Russia and Elizabethtown and many of his old haunts.
Yeah, the whole swimming hole.
And will we see that Indian that you carved in the side of the mountain?
Yeah, still there.
In New Russia?
Yeah, it's carved right in the ledge, so it might be there a few years.
Unlike the old man of the New Hampshire
that's right.
fell down, your Indian is still there.
Yeah, that was a shame,
It is, yes.
Yeah, that'll stay because it's profile carved in this way instead of this way. You have to have a lot more skill than I had at that time to do it any other way.
You haven't done any rock carving since then, maybe?
I haven't. No, I haven't had the time. Diane wants me to, but I've got to wait until I get older.
Maybe you can come down here and just carve something out in the beach here.
That's right. There's some interesting shapes. Sometimes
nature has done some interesting carving already.
It looks like somebody's stacked that. See that? Doesn't it look like somebody's stacked that?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? By God.
I think what it was is just one big rock that just has eroded to become all those little rocks.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, this is a great place. Sometimes Diane and I come down and we'll even bring our books and go down. And our nephew likes to fish, and he'll fish, and we'll sit there and
just sit here and enjoy it. Temperature today is about 75 degrees or so. It's picture perfect and a beautiful day to be here.
Beautiful. There's one thing though I want to, before we close, that little place up there, I won't mention the name, but they have the worst hamburgers that I've ever tasted.
Oh, we're going to head the other way.
Okay. Well, it's been a great pleasure for me.
A real pleasure for me, Ozzie.
Thank you. Same to you, and meeting the rest of your family. It's been great.
Okay.
Thank you, and I'll look forward to it to get together again, and of course to get back in my old haunts. It's going to be fun.
And through the magic of television, as you're watching this tape, that's going to happen immediately. When we stop talking here, we'll be immediately back in the Clinton, Essex County area up near through the magic of television, just like that.
Isn't that great? Yep. That's wonderful.
Okay, Judy has said we're on the air, and just like that, moments ago in this tape, Ozzie, we were in York Harbor, and as I said, through the magic of television, we're now in beautiful downtown Elizabethtown, right in front of the, near the
right across from the
county.
High school.
High school's here, and behind us the county seat.
Yeah. The old Windsor Hotel used to be here. beautiful big old wooden hotel.
Where
the whole business.
this whole thing here, where Stewart's is now.
Yeah, there's a big Windsor here, and the Deer's Head, a great big before that. But now there's just that one little business. Two big hotels, summer hotels that had all the porches. In fact, the Windsor had 2 layers of porches for rocking chairs. And a lot of people would come and just come on the train and get picked up at Westport and just spend the whole summer here.
So the train didn't come to Elizabethtown?
No, just Westport. And there was, and they had right in the back, they had great big vegetable gardens, so all the meals, fresh vegetables from their garden. I remember there were a lot of older women, that had lost their husbands and so on, but used to come here as a family, and they still came because they felt so at home. It was a very, very pleasant hotel.
And
I never stayed there, but
you'd sell flowers to them.
right, yeah.
If you saw our first episode, we've done 2.5 hours with Ozzie Sweet so far, and we're gonna have to remember which one was on the first tape and which was on, because we got 25 minutes started on the second tape. We have to remember which one is which here.
Yes. We don't want to repeat ourselves, do we?
No, well, we're not in the same tape. We may want to repeat some stuff we said in the first tape, because some people may not have seen that part. And as you're here on this, today is Bastille Day, July 14th, and over the weekend in Plattsburgh and Elizabethtown and Westport and all the points in between, the Channel 15, it was the Ozzie Sweet Story, and you've had several people tell you that they saw it.
Amazed that they recognized me. That was nice, yeah.
Okay, Jack LeDuc is here, and Jack's going to be doing a little story for WCAX Channel 3 News, so we're going to cut our tape and let Jack do his thing. Right. But before I do that, when we were in Maine, Ozzie gave me a couple of packets. One was a nice packet of photos that he's done, including Albert Einstein and Ingrid Bergman and a lot of famous people. A nice packet with probably 6 to 10 pictures of Rocky Marciano in it. And he also gave me a packet of calendars, and I didn't look at it closely till I got it home. And I got home and I looked at it and I said, oh, by golly, I recognize that truck. It's my old buddy Dick Matot's truck, and you ran into him, I think he said, in Massachusetts, Hampton, Massachusetts?
Yes, at a truck show.
And you took a picture, and this truck is from this area originally.
That's it. Yeah, it's right here.
Well, but he's in Shazy, but he said this truck, he bought it from down here in Elizabethtown.
Oh, he bought it here. I see. Yeah.
So it actually came from this area.
Didn't he do a great job of restoring it?
Yes, great job.
Under the hood, it's just as complete, beautiful.
I'm going to take this opportunity. I've never told this story before, so I'm going to tell you my Dick Matot story.
Okay.
Now, if you've ever seen Leave It to Beaver,
I used to watch.
Beaver had a nemesis, his brother's friend, Eddie Haskell. Well, Dick Matot is a few years older than me, and he's the same age as my brother Sam and my cousin Carl Bayshard. And Dick was my Eddie Haskell.
Oh, I see.
Dick was related to Carl Bayshard on the Bayshard side, and I was related to Carl Bayshard on the Trudeau side, and we'd often get together at family gatherings. And Dick, being a few years older, didn't have any younger brothers to pick on, so he liked to pick on me whenever he could. So one day we were at my Uncle Clarence's camp along Lake Champlain, and there was this ledge, probably I'd say 6, 7, 8 feet high, little stone, not stone, but cement wall, keep the high water tied off. And I was walking along there, and Dick came up and went like he was going to push me, but he didn't. And I moved, fell flat on my back, had the wind knocked out of me, laying there gasping for air. So all the adults came over, and my father knew that Dick was my nemesis here, so he said, "What happened?" I looked at Dick, and he had this dread on his face. I said, "Oh, I fell."
Oh, good. Oh, that's good.
So I've never told my father anything different. So if he's watching this, he'll now know the whole story.
That's very nicely where you protected him.
Yes.
That's great.
So it's great when I saw Dick's truck on there. And over the weekend, you were at the Antique Gas Engine Show. We're going to let you go in a moment here. And
yeah.
you said you managed to get 5 tractors,
Yeah, I've got 5 tractors.
so you
yeah.
got your calendar almost done.
Yeah, about almost half done. Yeah.
Do you remember any of the names of the tractor people owners?
No, yeah, well, I don't really. No, I don't, because I give them a caption sheet, and they with address, stamped envelope, and so on, and they carefully write out a caption. I have special questions I ask, and then anything that's interesting about the restoration or the history of the tractor. You know how they might be sitting out in the field with trees growing up or something for 30 years, that kind of thing. And then I send them, after I got that with their full address and all, I send them transparency, 4x5 transparency, and they don't allow it to be published in any way to scoop the calendar, so they'll know how it turned out, because it takes a couple of years before the calendar actually appears. And but I can remember I shot, of course, a John Deere and Farm All, and what was the other? Golly, I'd have to get the list out of my car. We do so much that I kind of forget one year to the other.
I know that. People ask me things about what I've taped, and I said, ask me when I'm doing it, I remember, but...
Yeah, and of course each one has to be different. It's only, being a 12-sheeter, you can't have, say, 2 John Deeres.
Right.
And Farm Malls or anything. You can only have one of each. And so in this case, I do have one of each. And then usually a little models that are quite different, so that as you look through the calendar, there isn't any sameness,
Right.
So that's so these were all very different. And of course, I spend a good, sometimes as much as a full day, finding locations that are proper, and then hoping if it's a long way out with a tractor especially, hoping they'll be willing to load it on their trailer and bring it to those locations, and they almost always are.
So you found you had to find a location over the weekend, Saturday, and you went.
Got them all.
Use the same location, or?
Oh no, I can't ever do that, because then the art director, if he recognizes it, he'll say,
So you had to have 5 locations and 5 different tractors.
Yeah. And I don't want the art director saying, "What the hell's the matter, Ozzie? Can't you find any?"
You'd hate to have to go and start a whole new, different career at this stage, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, we're gonna pick up with Ozzie in this park. There's a couple of monuments here dedicated to his family member, a member of his family. We're gonna let him tell you about that, but first we're gonna break and let Mr. Jack LeDuc take over and do his story.
Good, thanks. Okay.
We're not going to bother Jack too much here. We're going to let him do his story, but when I called up Jack and I called up the Press Republican Shan Moore to let them know that Ozzie was going to be here so they could each do a story on him, Jack says, "Oh yeah, I know Ozzie," and I should have known that Jack LeDuc knows all the rich and famous people in the world.
I don't know whether I'd include the rich part of it.
So Jack says back about 15 years ago or so, he says Ozzie was there and did a picture of the Ice Palace at Saranac Lake, and that went on to prominence in Grand Central Station.
Grand Central Station and Kodak stores all over the country, I believe.
Now this was no ordinary little picture on the wall. How big was it in Grand Central Station?
Well, it appeared 60 feet across, 60 feet wide. Largest display backlighted, like a light box, because it's like a giant transparency, and they put it up, in strips. It was the largest display anywhere in Kodak, and of course, sometimes out on buildings and so on, they have signs, but I think it's still never been beat as far as a backlighted thing. It's very effective.
Now, tell Jack about that lady who used to go down there from Greenwich that would look at that picture.
Well, no, this was, I had a number of them. This was one of the first ones. In fact, I think it was the very first one I did, which was quite a few years before this one. And I happened to mention it to my mother, and she lived in Greenwich, Connecticut. And so she went down I think she went down twice to Grand Central and just stood there, with all the people about.
Sure.
And then if she'd see anybody, stop and look at it, stop a few minutes, look at it. She'd go racing up to them, said, "My son took that picture."
Well, it was something to be proud of. Yes. One of the biggest pictures in the world. That's something to be proud of.
Right.
Sure.
I remember when we took the picture, how we arranged. My wife, you talked a good bit to my wife. I was so busy shouting at the kids and everything.
Well, you must have had 50 or 60 people there.
Well, they were nice
in that
because
picture.
the school, she was a school teacher before we were married, and she said, why don't we contact the school and maybe they'll bring children out. All those children were brought out
idea, yeah.
as a little field trip, and then later on, you know, I told him all about it. In other words, if I gave him some information about it, then he could justify it, the principle, whether it was that it was a field trip, an educational thing.
And my dog Flim Flam was in there.
Was that right? That's great.
Appeared very prominently in the photograph.
That's good. That's wonderful. All right.
I just wanted you to tell Jack that story, and
Yeah.
now we'll break and let Jack do his job.
I'll get my trousers clear.
Okay. I had to ask Jack when you finished with him, Ozzie, if you were good at taking directions, because he took some non-candid shots of you, but he said you were pretty good at following directions.
Oh, good. Well, it's nice to be the one that's not responsible for the results, you know.
We're starting our story here in the park for a very special reason for Ozzie Sweet, and that's because there's a couple monuments here that are very important to you, right? Want to tell us about them?
Well, they're you know, they list everyone that appeared in both wars.
Both World Wars.
Both World Wars. Excuse me. And my dad is on the list.
I don't know.
The other, Hardy E. Sweet is on this one, which was the Second World War, and then on the other one where there are a lot fewer names, he appears on that one because he was in both wars, and he went overseas, and he was a master sergeant before he got out, and he even went to the Philippines. He was in the service and spent some time there. So then he went back in the Second World War and picked up where his rank was, and was a non-commissioned officer, and he spent some time in Great Britain, and all. So he was in both wars.
Okay, Judy might want to take a shot of the other
Oh yes.
the other plaque over there. Can you walk with us, Judy? Judy's going to walk with us. So, how old would your father have been in World War II?
Well, let's see. He would have been. I think he would have been in his 50s.
What year would he have been born?
Well, I know when he was killed on the way to Plattsburgh. You know,
You were telling me that
hospital.
yesterday that
Yeah.
he was killed in an
automobile
auto accident.
yeah.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, it was a Canadian vehicle that didn't have any lights out. They'd stopped right in the side of the road, not pulled over, and there were no lights. It was, I've forgotten what it was, loaded, hay or something. So they just banged right into the back of it, and he was killed. And the reason they were going is because my Aunt Edna, that was his youngest sister, who lived with us on the farm, she was in the hospital there, and they were just going over to see her. One of the O'Donnell boys was driving him over. And yeah, that was, boy, I'll tell you, that was in the 50s, I think. So, yeah.
Let's see, there's a Morgan O'Donnell on this World War I
Yes,
list here.
Yeah, Morg O'Donnell. And Joe, they were brothers. Morg O'Donnell lived in New Russia, and Joe lived in New Russia too, on the other side of the town. Both brothers. Joe O'Donnell had been an automobile dealer in Albany, and had done very, very well. They have a very, very nice home. The home is still there and looks beautiful. And then Morg had a farm, you know, with cattle and so on. Yeah, that's
So what year would it then your father died in that accident, roughly?
it was in the 50s. I wish I could remember just when it was. I can't remember the exact year, but it was in the 50s. And he was a very, very good mechanic, as well as having the farm. Later on, we dropped the cows because that meant milking twice a day, and we still kept pigs and sheep and chickens.
Just have to feed them and clean them.
That's right. But he worked at the Marvin's. It was called Marvin's Garage. The garage down at the end, right as the golf course is right after that. And they have this the brother, or rather one of the sons, was the mortuary. It has had the mortuary there. But in those days, they were funeral. So many times they were funeral directors, but they also had furniture stores at the same time. Wasn't that interesting? And that's what the setup was there. But then there were two of the Marvin brothers, and then the big building on the far side was a big garage. They had a dealership, I think it was Chevrolet, and a big machine shop. And the machine shop was the father actually sort of ran that for them. And he was a very, very good mechanic too. And sometimes, see, they were in charge of the county trucks. They did all the plowing and all in the wintertime. And sometimes he'd have to stay over. And that I can remember. I was too young to milk, but I can remember my Aunt Edna sitting on the stool, milking out the last cow, because you got to finish them off. And hands ached, so tears were running down her cheeks, But that didn't happen very often.
But
But once in a while it would happen.
yeah.
Yeah, and so soon after that. And then we used to buy our milk from the Gilligans. They had up over the bridge there, they had a nice big dairy. And I used to go on my bicycle and pick it up, and he'd pay for the milk once a week, and my mother would put the money in the can and say, "Now, Sonny," that's what they called me, "Sonny, don't forget to tell Mrs. Gilligan that the money's in there." Well, of course, I would forget, so they'd pour the milk right in on top of the money. And I get scolded a little bit, not too bad.
So they didn't deliver it to you in containers. You brought your own container over there and
Yeah,
filled up
yeah.
right out of the milk pail,
Yeah,
right out of the
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
milk can.
Yeah, and they had one of those long manure things that ran out on a track. They were one of the first to have that. And by gosh, if Hugh Gilligan, one of the boys, one of the Gilligan boys, was slightly hit by hurt a little bit by electricity, because that big thing attracted the electricity. It ran right into the stable, and
Wow.
it gave him a good jolt, but it didn't cripple him up or anything.
Yeah, but that thing was handier than following the wheelbarrow out.
Oh, it sure was. Yeah, that was.
I remember one time, I was probably about 15, and it had been raining out. We had a ramp,
Yeah.
and had to be toward the early part of the summer, because the manure was very wet.
Yeah.
So usually when the cows first go out,
Oh, yeah.
they're kind of runny because they're
Oh,
not used
yeah.
to that green grass.
Sure.
So I was running up that ramp and slipped,
Oh.
and I dove headfirst right into that wheelbarrow,
Oh, how awful.
level full with
Oh, I know it.
sloppy stuff. It was nice, soupy.
And hot in the wintertime, it would stay warm and steam. Remember how that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was, yeah, but I'm glad I had that boyhood. I wouldn't want to change it for anything. It was really great. And the little red schoolhouse, the building that was the schoolhouse is intact, but they just built wings on it.
So we're going to go see that
Yeah, we're
schoolhouse,
gonna
right?
see. Yeah.
We're going to go to Ozzie's homestead. The house is no longer there. We'll look at that. We're going to go to the school next. And for those of you just joining us, we're talking with Ozzie Sweet. I grew up in New Russia, went to high school here in Elizabethtown, and went on to become one of the premier photographers in the United States. And he's back here for a working visit, and we imposed on him to spend some time with us. We have moved. We are in front of the Elizabethtown High School, as it was known many years ago. It's now the Adirondack Museum,
Right.
not to be confused with the Blue Mountain Lake Adirondack Museum.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask you this before I forget. Now, when Gordy Little and I did a story here several years ago with the 200th anniversary of Elizabethtown, we were at the side entrance, and we noticed at the top it said girls entrance. Now, was that still the case when you were
No, not really. I think when they built the building, they had girls and boys, but no, we could come in anywhere. That might. Yeah, I know. Isn't that interesting that they had girls and boys?
yes,
Yeah.
segregation.
Of course, when they put it in like that, it stays too, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Right
it's-
into the
it's-
concrete.
It's right in the original foundation. It's like erected in. It's the
Yeah.
same type of situation. Now, we're just telling something about Mrs. Egglefield was a teacher. You came here in high school, but you also came here 1 year as a...
1 year, yeah, second grade, and she was my teacher, and that was the room.
little one over here in the corner, yeah?
And then, of course, when I came back in high school, I was upstairs all the time. But the thing about that gymnasium that was interesting is that the boundary line, there was only a couple feet when you came to the wall. Well, of course, you know, when you're playing basketball, sometimes you're way the hell over and
Yeah.
the wall, and you go crashing into that wall. And I remember a team came all the way from Marblehead, Mass, to play us when the team was the Mountain Elite Mountain and Valley champs. They beat all the other high schools. Just how that high school and way out there in Massachusetts happened to come, I don't know, but they drove in a number of private cars. So when they got here just in time to play, you know, driving all that time, they beat us by a little. But what was so confusing to them is they would go over the line and crash into the wall all the time. See, we were used to that.
Yeah.
And that gym, the only gym that we put in any of the high schools that had that restriction, you know. And it was whenever any team played us, of course, they weren't accustomed to it, and we were. It can smart when you're going like hell and hit the wall.
You got to adapt your game accordingly. I know, kind of like playing in my yard at home. It's on the basket's on the side of a barn.
Yeah.
So obviously, right underneath the basket, it's the wall. So you get used to it. In fact, you sometimes use it to help yourself jump. You know, you use the wall, but you can't do it in a high school game because that's out of bounds.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is new, of course. This wasn't
Little
here.
fountain here.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, we had. I enjoyed the high school years.
So you were here about 3 years as a high school student?
Yep, 3 years. And then the last senior year I went to the high school in Stamford, Connecticut.
Now you did tell me Saturday when I saw you off camera, a little sad note. Many of the people you'd hoped to come visit this trip up are no longer with us.
You're right. It might even I thought maybe you'd be interested because of things that went on. But I found out, Ben Hooper, who was wonderful. He was probably one of the best basketball players that ever played on this high school team. And I talked to him from time to time, and I thought, well, he might be interested in including him. And by golly, I called, and his wife informed me that he died less than a year ago. But I had made up a list of about 20 or 21 others that I thought, you know, I could check whether maybe you'd like to include them. But I went down that list, and there was no one left. They'd all gone.
They're all gone.
Yeah, so we'll have to do it alone.
Now there has to be some of your former schoolmates that are still here, just weren't on that list.
Yeah, there probably are. I don't know who they'd be though, because everyone that I was even out at the cemetery this morning. A fellow named Hawk was there, and he showed me where my father's grave was, way down to the end. And he manages things there. But he pointed out a lot of these friends where their graves were. You know, I think hard. The ones that I'm friendly with, those were on that list, and they're just one of those things, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that shouldn't be something that you be shocked about after 80s, you know.
Yeah, you're going to be 85 in the fall. And
Yeah.
your birthday's September 10th, you said?
Yeah, September 10th.
Aren't you glad it's not September 11th?
Yeah, that's it.
You never gave it any thought before, but after 2 years ago,
Well, I was in an exercise class, and someone just opened the door and said that the buildings had been hit. And the first thing I thought it was just someone pilot not knowing his way that accidentally run into it. But then, of course, we soon found out the other plane followed so soon after. And of course, they never thought that the buildings would go all the way to the ground.
No. If they had done that in a movie, we would have said, that's unbelievable,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But we found out in real life. Now, changing our subject a little bit here, Judy can probably shoot that church next to us here. Which church is this, Ozzie?
I'm not sure what.
Do you know what it was back in the 30s when you were in school?
Well, I didn't attend the church.
No, but You
see,
went by it every day. And
went by it. You know,
can't remember?
I can't remember.
But you do remember being in it.
Oh yes, a friend of mine, Bill Parker, and I, one of my best buddies, we'd go up and sit up in the bell tower part of it, and it was kind of fun to look down. You could see down through the and look around and talk. And we'd you know, I don't know why we picked the subject of girls, but we talk about the girls in town, who was the prettiest, and all, you know, the things you talk about. And that's where we used
Some
to
of that probably wasn't quite appropriate for church, though.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Jack's just found somebody here. Who is it here, Brent? Come on over. We'll keep taping. We're not. And,
I'm Susie Doolittle. My husband and I used to own the Adirondack Daily Enterprise and the Lake Placid
yes.
News.
Oh yes, yes.
Yes. So,
And tell them what you're doing, Susie.
well, we're doing a project here at the school with our AmeriCorps interns, where they're bringing people back into the school who live in the area and who went to school here, and interviewing them about their experiences in all of the different rooms.
That's interesting.
Are you going to be in town for a while?
No, I have to get back tonight.
Oh, because it would be great for them to hear about your life in the school.
Thank you. When is it?
Well, it's just an ongoing oral history project that we're working on.
I see. Oh, if it goes on long enough, I might get back.
Well,
But this happens to be a busy time.
Uh-huh.
But later on, after the autumn colors, then I have a rest period, you know, for a while.
Great.
So
Well,
maybe
they'll just write you a letter and we can get your address from these guys. That would be great. And Lily is our latest AmeriCorps volunteer who works on special projects for us here. It's a great program.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. Very wonderful. And the building is kept up so well. Look, beautiful.
Does it look great?
Yeah, it really does. You know, I was just remembering how the basketball team, we had our picture photographed, and of course the steps you could build up and see all the faces. And then the shortest ones, of course, were down front.
Right.
You know?
All of the old yearbooks, which has been really interesting.
Yeah.
do you have some old yearbooks that are handy?
Yeah, I think they're upstairs, right?
Yes.
What year were you here, Ozzie?
Oh boy, I was in
In the 30s, you have any?
Yeah, I graduated 37, so it would be 35, 36, and 34.
We're going to try to find a yearbook.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's do that right now.
Oh, okay.
We're going to take a shot here. We're going to go ahead, Jack. Jack Ledoux can also get Ozzie returning to his second grade.
Yeah, it looks quite different than it did when
Was it bigger then?
it was, I remember I sat right up pretty close, 2 or 3 seats back from the front, I remember. It was a wonderful display. They've done such a good job, haven't they?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. But does the classroom look a little smaller now?
Well, no, it's about right, about what it was. You know,
The ceilings always look a little higher when you're
yeah.
only 3 feet tall yourself.
I think it probably looked bigger. And then, of course, then I had the history class. What was that nice teacher's name? The history class in high school right above, and then geometry and so on was in a room back upstairs in that direction. The little library was upstairs over in that corner. The library was over in this corner. That's right. And then, I remember that that was a good place. There's so many different places that, in those days, of course, wherever the pretty girls were, you wanted to find time to be there. I remember how, let's see, Louise Prime was one of the real pretty girls, and M. Knott, what was her first name? But anyway, M. Knott girl, she was very pretty, and then Jane Brewster was, Judge Brewster's daughter. She was an exceptionally pretty girl. There were some really quite nice looking ladies.
Well, if she's good looking to begin with, and you add in the judge's daughter, that gives her another 10% right there. Doesn't it?
That's right, yes. Yeah, he was a lawyer first, and then became the judge. I don't know whether you fellows remember reading about the mystery golfer. Remember, and he played with Bing Crosby and all. They used.
Okay.
Remember
yes.
the mystery golfer?
Yes.
And all the trials were here, and Judge Brewster was the
Judge Brewster.
Brewster, and the press from New York. The town was full of press, wasn't
That was
it?
big time stuff.
Oh, that was big time stuff. Yeah, that puts Elizabethtown right on the map. You know, it's all the New York papers had it and everything. You know, hotels were filled with writers and so on. And they called him the mystery golfer. It seems that he, early in his career, he had robbed a store somewhere in one of the towns, one of the small stores. And that's why he was, and of course after that, he made a name for himself as a golfer. But it was that mistake he had made earlier in life that brought the thing. I was so young, I can't remember the details, but I'm sure it's in all the records.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go find that yearbook.
Oh yes, let's do.
You may have been able to figure this out. We're no longer at the school. They don't have the years that we're looking for the yearbook, but they're going to look for them, and hopefully next time Ozzie's in town, they'll have the yearbooks that he wants. We have moved to the Cobble Hill Golf Club.
Yep, that was a 9-hole course, and a very beautiful 9-hole course. And of course, many people that are accustomed to playing 18 holes, they just go around twice. But I caddied here. Let's see, I was about 14 when I first started to caddy. I had the flower business, of course, as well. But I used to come down, ride my bicycle the 6 miles down. Sometimes I come down with my dad. But there was a caddy shack, and the caddies, the boys that were caddying, no girls, of course, back then. I don't know even yet whether they'd have girl caddies, but there was a little caddy shack, and you'd register in, and then you just waited back in the shack. We'd play cards, or I used to bring a book to read and that sort of thing. But that was okay, but the best thing was to get a steady, and that would be where you have someone who plays regularly, who would say, now I'm going to come tomorrow with a twosome or a foursome at such and such a time, and then you'd be there waiting. So they knew they had a caddy that they were familiar with, and you had work every day. And one of the steadies that I had the second year I was caddying was Otto Kruger, and at that time he was very well known on the New York stage, and but he hadn't made his name in movies. Later on, he did his first real good supporting part was in Treasure Island, but he'd come, and he'd always, very rarely would he come play by himself, but he'd have a twosome and sometimes a foursome, and if he was going to have a foursome, it was just regular people, and the other caddies would come from the caddy shack. But I enjoyed, of course, I was interested in theater way back, even back then. It was a great thing. I enjoyed caddying because I was familiar with his reputation as a New York Broadway. He played in had some very important roles on Broadway. So his reputation was quite big. But he'd come almost every other day. And then sometimes when we'd play, he always seemed to come early afternoon. But we'd finish up, and usually they'd play 2 rounds. That would be the 18 holes. And then he'd say, Sonny, let's go on such and such a green and practice. And I think back how I practiced putting, just he and I, after late in the day on these different holes. And he'd ask me about, as if I were an expert, what I thought about how we putted. And then I'd ask him, but it was great. So then when I got down, later on, when I was in Hollywood and I was working in some films, they set up a publicity shot of he and I out. I, of course, was all grown up then, out as though we were playing golf. So that's kind of a little interesting story that all started here, and that helped round out with other things I did to make money during the summer. But it was a very pleasant thing to come here and play and caddy here. And of course, in those days, there were no carts like you see here. and they most of the players, if they didn't hire a caddy or caddies, they just carried their clubs. That was quite to get a lot more exercise back in those days.
It looks like it's a lot of up and down, a lot of
Oh yes, it's a very
hilly.
very interesting hilly. There's one, I've forgotten which one hole it is. It's about halfway through, and there's one the tee is right here, and the green is almost, there's an angle right down. It's a very short hole, as they called it. And that hole, every once in a while, somebody would make a hole in one on that one, because it'd be an iron shot, and all, and it'd roll right in. But it's the trees, of course. Some of the trees are bigger, but it looks almost as it did back in the almost
still 9
70.
holes?
Yeah, still 9 holes. But they keep it up, as you can see. It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. They don't have a caddy shack anymore. I don't imagine. I don't know whether they even have caddies. I don't think.
Probably not.
No, just people.
Not with golf carts.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, what would you would get work in that caddy shack based on when you were there to sign up? So first come was the first one
Well,
out.
that's it. Yes, we'd come in. We'd get signed. Name would be in the book, and then they just pick the caddies as you were listed down the list.
Now, if you had a steady, you probably couldn't have more than one person that you were a steady for in the same season, right?
No, just one steady. Yeah. The other steady I had before Otto Kruger, it was the Unger family. I just remember the name, and then they stayed right in that used to be an inn, and they stayed right there. So they just had to walk
Reddish
across
building
the
there,
street.
across the street.
That was an inn.
Now we went by a building with what was it? Hubbard Hall, was it? Is that what it was, Judy? Hubbard Hall, you said, which is its name now. It used to be the community room, the community hospital.
Oh yes. That used to be the hospital in town. Yeah, and they called it the community house, and it was the hospital. And there wasn't anything real serious, and all would go to Plattsburgh, but smaller things would be in that hospital. My mother was a trained nurse and wanted to train. She had been a trained nurse and active years before, and once in a while she'd be called on and she'd help out when they were short of people. But and then I remember there was a family. I don't remember the family's name. That once in a while she took care of their children, but they owned the electric company. They owned to supply the electricity for the town in the area. Nice family.
Yeah, again, people don't realize that back when electricity first came, there was a lot of small, just like little phone companies. There were little electric companies too.
That's right. Yeah, I remember when I was in Alaska. They had from Anchorage to Fairbanks. There was a roadhouse, and they had 2 phones on the wall, and they would come in on one phone. The woman would be there, and then she'd ring up, and it'd go on through on the other phone. That was temporary. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I enjoyed it, and it was getting away and doing something involved with other people, which was nice. And it was so beautiful. And of course, I think that's called Cobble Hill right up there.
Over to our left, it's Cobble Hill.
Yeah, see that knoll. But it's a beautiful. Just going around in a cart now, of course, it's beautiful. The trees and all are so nice.
Yeah, I was very impressed the first time I saw this.
Beautiful.
How pretty it is.
Yeah, this was and of course at that time my dad still worked for the part-time for that's where the machine shop was, and the garage was that big building there. And one of the brothers one of the brothers had the mortuary and the other had the garage. And it was the only machine shop anywhere in the area at the time. You know how the old machine shops, big belts going everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
One belt ran everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting when you see some of those old photos. And we took a tour back in '94 with a man who had a sawmill that's still hooked up like that.
Yeah.
He isn't using it, but it was very, very interesting how everything ran off.
Yeah.
And to have the mind to know what size pulley to put on the other end of it to get the right speed and everything. It's
and the machine
you
shop.
have to be an engineer to figure that out.
That's right. And they had the different tools. They could actually make parts in a machine shop. Somebody's clever enough to do that. That's really skilled.
Okay, we're going to move on. Where else do you want to go?
Well, the next thing we might go to the old homestead.
Back to your homestead
and
where your
then
home was?
Yeah, and nearby is the Little Red Schoolhouse. Within sight, we might look that over.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a residence now. Somebody bought it and fixed it up, but they left the actual school building part just as it was and just built a wing off to the side.
Now, I have to tell you, I am not sure, but I think I've never been to New Russia before, so this could be my first ever venture into New Russia.
Oh, good. Well, we'll stop at the store that was there, and an old fellow named Elihu Morehouse used to come in the first thing in the morning and sit out on the bench, and he'd always greet you. Everybody that came, he would greet them, and I used to like it because I'd get him to tell me stories, and I'd make up stories. Elihu Morehouse, and I've done a book where one of the characters is I named him Elihu, and then where they live, I used his last name is where Mrs. Morehouse lives, because he had a good size house. So I've used those. I just enjoyed Elihu so darn much. And he lived within walking distance. You go down, and that's where the hill start up for Simon's Hill. They used to test they used to take automobiles, hill climbing there. The Terraplane, Hudson Terraplane, was a great hill climber back then. And they just used to eat that hill right up. But a Model T, it was so steep, a lot of times they'd have to turn the Model T and back it up because the gas would run back. You know how that would work. But he lived about a quarter of a mile in an old house over on the right, going on the way up the dirt road of Simon's Hill that went over to Lincoln Pond and all. But we can go over there and see that.
All right, next stop, New Russia.
Yeah.
Okay, we didn't want to leave without making sure we got a shot of the you have to keep the camera low to keep the sky out of the picture. We want to make sure people can understand how beautiful this is down here. But without the sun shining right on us at the moment, we have to keep the camera a little low. Once again, through the magic of television, we have relocated instantly, but unlike when we relocated about an hour ago from York Harbor to Elizabethtown, this time we went 6 miles, or about 6 miles down the road. And Ozzie was telling us in the car that after a basketball game, when he'd get back to Elizabethtown, through the ice and snow, just like all the grandfathers tell their grandkids, what did you used to do?
Well, we get back from a game where we'd be playing another high school, and we get back, and of course it'd be 1 o'clock or more, and it'd be in the middle of the winter, and temperatures would be way down. But I can remember some nights it would be moonlight and beautiful. Well, it was 6 miles, and I used to I call it walk, but I used to use the scout pace where you walk 2 and you jogged. You walk 50 paces and you jog 50 paces. So it's walk, jog, walk, about 50 paces at a time. And what's good about that, it makes a lot of difference in your timing to get home, 6 miles. And it's just enough exercise to keep you nice and warm without sweating. So it was perfect. And that's how I'd come home after playing basketball, and get home, and it'd be so cold sometimes that in the woods, everything was very still, and there'd be nobody passing to give you if anybody came along. Of course, they'd pick you up, but be nobody at that hour. But it'd be so cold and so quiet that sometimes the freezing would make a stump expand and make a crack like a rifle going off. And of course, I was always so happy to be on the team and do the traveling and all that. I never felt put upon, and it would, after the bus driver had driven all those miles, he didn't feel like driving 12 miles round trip to bring one person back, the school bus. So
it would have been nice if he had.
It would have been nice sometimes, but it would have, yeah. But the schoolhouse was painted red
Now,
with
this
green.
is the Aussie's one-room schoolhouse here that we're looking at.
And the school is where you see the entryway, and then
Yeah,
right at the
doorway's still there.
yeah, the entryway there where you'd come in, and then there was a bell on the top, not on the top of the entryway, but up on the peak of the roof. And then there was a rope that came right down through into the entryway, so from inside the entryway you could pull the rope and ring the bell. And of course the bell was used to the teacher would always ring it when it was time the school to start. And this was all open here, all going, but that was all a big meadow, and we'd play out there, and in recess. And of course she'd give the bell a couple pulls to get us in.
So Judy might want to look at the wooded area, and also sometime while we're chatting here, she might want to look at the behind her, because you said that was also an open meadow right behind us.
All open meadow, yep.
So it's certainly changed a little bit in the last
Yeah, well, see,
70, 60, almost 70 years now.
almost 70 years.
When we were at the golf course, you said you were 14 or so when you were caddying.
First started, yeah.
And I'm going to be giving your age away here. That was 70 years ago you were 14.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So
Yeah,
obviously when you went here to this one-room schoolhouse, that's even longer ago.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This went up to 8th grade?
Yes, it was all 8 grades. That was another thing about it. A lot of schools will only go to the 6th grade, you know, that sort of thing. But this was all 8 grades. But there was such a sparse population, the farms and so on, that we never had more than a dozen students. And the teacher, almost never that many, because they were all farms. And of course the older students, male students, were taken out to cut wood because we didn't have electricity to cut ice, and of course help with the plowing and help with harvest in the fall. They used to, about a third of their school year, they'd be missing, but of course the truant officer understood that, so he wouldn't make any trouble.
Yeah, they weren't out looking for
Yeah,
mischief. They were out doing what
Working.
had to be done.
yeah,
Keep the family going.
that's right.
Now we're at 6378 Route 9.
Mm-hmm. Good old Route 9, the bootleggers route. That before the thruway went through, this was the main route from New York to Montreal. And of course it was great from the tourist standpoint too. Putting the thruway through kind of killed the tourist trade through here.
Yeah, there was a set of cabins north of Elizabethtown. We came down, we got off the Willsboro exit and came down by Poco Moonshine on Route 9.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one particular set of cabins that's just trees growing all around it and probably through it. That just, that it was
hadn't been used
in 40 years.
That's
40 years ago when the Northway came through.
Yeah,
That was the bell tolled for them.
That's right. And this was the one across the Gilligan's farm. That was the biggest. That was the biggest dairy. They had the biggest dairy. It's up on a hill, beautiful place. And when we got rid of our cows, because of milking every other day, I used to get milk over there. I don't think I told you this, did I? But
you told me about it, but I don't know if it was on camera.
Yes. Well, they had a 2-quart pail, and I'd go over with my bicycle. But anyway, once a week, my mother
and
would
you'd leave your money. I think you did tell us that on tape.
Yeah, oh, did I? Yeah.
You'd forget your money. That you had your money in the pail, and
they pour the milk right on top. I never remembered to tell her.
Now, we think she would be smart enough to figure it out too. You know, hey,
right.
Last week I poured milk on the money.
Yeah.
Is there money in there, Sonny?
Yeah, that's right.
Now this one-room schoolhouse has been expanded as a home right now. You see a truck parked there.
Yeah, everything from the left is that's all new living space. And the river goes right by. If you walk back there, it's beautiful. The folks aren't home. I was in today to see if anybody was home. The name of the people that have that, the name is Becker's. And it's more or less a summer place.
I see.
But,
now this was your school for 7 years. You said the 2nd grade you went to
Yeah.
Elizabethtown.
Yeah, I went to school here.
So 1, 3 through 8 you were.
Yeah. And almost always, the teachers were always from out of town somewhere. And so they used to board with us because our house was right. If these trees weren't here, you could see it.
Okay, well, we're going to be going there next.
Yeah, and so they'd board with us, And if I needed any help, of course, it was really handy right there having the teacher. But she used to help with chores around the house and all. And I'd never forget, room and board was $7, $1 a day for room and board. And then if she had one teacher especially that was here about 2 or 3 years. She had family in Glens Falls, which was about 70 miles away. And when she'd go home for the weekend, so she was only with us for 5 days, of course, then the room and board was only $5 a week. Oh, yeah.
So cut into the income.
Right, right.
Now, these teachers probably weren't too old either, were they?
Always very young, yeah.
Young.
One of them was right out.
Did you ever fall in love with a teacher in your younger days? No?
No, I never did.
No?
No. Yes, one of them was her first job. One of the teachers, very young. Somewhere there's a picture. I have a picture of a little group out in front of that. Oh, and I stopped in today, my old friend Gilbert Denton, one of the only ones left, into that's right behind the buildings, the big brick buildings, you know, the county seat buildings in Elizabethtown. And he's 88, stopped in to say hello. And he was the school, but he was a student here, but he was also the janitor while he was going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't get water out of the river because you weren't always sure. So that he'd always come up and get water from us to put in the drinking arrangement they had here. And I don't know whether I mentioned this, but we always liked Gilbert because he had the latest news. He'd tell us what was going on.
Did he have any news for you today?
No,
No?
his memory was slipping a little. He did remember quite a bit, though. But he was a good guy. He's the only one. I found out that he'd been moved to the little senior citizens place right behind there. So I had to go in and see him for a minute. He was in a wheelchair and all, but
Now the kid who was a janitor used to have to come in and start the stove in the winter.
oh yeah, because he couldn't keep it going all winter. It was so cold, but he'd put big chunks in and get it going, and actually the sides of the stove would get a little red. He had to get it warm enough so when everyone arrived, and it would blister the varnish on the seats that were nearest, everything. But it was cozy and warm. I don't know what, back in those days no one had stone windows. They used to pack sawdust around the bottom of the houses, you know, and put things and pack sawdust, and that would help.
Or manure.
Some
people would put manure.
Manure, yeah. But no, there weren't such a thing as stone windows then.
No.
And we had, in our kitchen up here, we had a lot of flowers in pots along the windows, you know, and every night they'd put them over on the table so they wouldn't be right there at the window because they'd get too cold.
Well, yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, the wood stove goes out during the middle of the night.
That's right, yeah. And we had, but as you probably know, it was just in the last year the old homestead burned down.
Yeah.
So there's just a chimney. Yeah.
So that's where we're going right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we have relocated, and we were just told that 2 months ago, in February, so it's we're in the 7th month. So that's 5 months ago now.
Yeah.
Your homestead.
Yeah.
And what's your name now? You lived Welch. The Welch family was living here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did your father build this, Ozzie?
No, they bought it. And he bought it. And when they bought it, and there was 100 and something acres with it.
100 acres.
Yeah, and they didn't have the porch around and that sort of thing, but they bought the whole shebang for $500.
100 acres and a house and barns.
Yeah.
For 500, but that 500 was very dear to come by,
that's
right?
That's right. Yeah.
Now this fireplace must
that was
bring a lot of memories.
That was put on later.
That was later. That wasn't when you were here.
No, that wasn't here when I was here.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a big chunk stove in the living room here, but no, that wasn't here. But it's kind of a nice monument to the old place, though, isn't it?
Yes. If it wasn't for that fireplace right now and chimney, there
wouldn't be anything. Yeah.
So
boy, that's a good clean job. Somebody cleaned up good afterward too. Look at all this stuff is away. But
so you moved here when you were what, 3, 4?
Yeah, about 3 years, three and a half years old. Mm-hmm. And
that was 80 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
1923.
Yeah, and they didn't have the porch. It had a little porch around the summer kitchen that came out here. I have some pictures of it, but it didn't have the. My dad actually dug that all out. Used wheelbarrow. Yeah.
So he put it. You're talking about this basement here.
Yeah, he had help
So
with
he
the
put
stone.
stones in there.
Well,
and
he had help with the stonework, but he did most of the actual digging the dirt out. I can remember.
So did he dig under the house?
Oh, yeah.
So the house was already there.
Yeah,
He had to dig under it.
That's right.
Put that in.
Yeah.
Because I've got a basement that's only this high.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, well, maybe one of these days. But I've got my furnace up. I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
You know, I got so many things: my water heater, my furnace, and everything else. I would be standing there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So you don't know if you're better off doing it or not doing it. But it's not very handy to walk down there.
Oh, no.
This here probably wasn't much more than a crawl space when he started.
Well, that's right. And it had the stairs that came up. There were some shelves there where my aunt used to store the yum yum cake that she used to make, which I loved. But my dad, we'd almost be waiting for it because he'd forget about that shelf, and as he came up, he'd bump his head up.
Just like you'd forget about the milk money, huh?
That's right. Yeah. You know, we could always, and then of course he'd have to come out with a couple cuss words, you know, when he'd bang his head up.
Well, yeah.
So we looked forward to that. We knew.
It's the only excitement you could get back then. You didn't have R-rated movies to.
That's right. That's right. But see, the house came out quite a bit here. That it wasn't a full basement by any means.
So
yeah, see, the house was way out.
Way out to here, huh?
Yeah. With the summer kitchen.
Yeah.
The summer kitchen probably came out as far as here.
Ozzie thinks it came out this far. Is that?
How far out did it come?
There was like an addition was built on.
Yeah. Yeah, you still had the summer kitchen on, the second kitchen.
Want to come over?
Yeah, see, so that...
I've been enough on TV.
Wow. This is just cable here.
I think it came out about this far.
Yeah, right about there.
So you see, that made a pretty good size house.
They never finished it off.
Yeah, my house is the same summer kitchen, and the foundation isn't the same foundation, and your floors aren't always the same. Yeah. And what's your name?
Helen
Welch?
Welch.
And who's this young blonde lady here?
One of our granddaughters.
Your mama's over there? Okay, so how many of you were living in here?
There was my husband and I and our daughter and 3 kids. There were 6 of us when the fire broke out.
Middle of the night, during the day? When?
Early morning.
Early morning?
Yeah. My husband has Parkinson, and he woke up to a kaboom. He looked in the dining room area, and it was just a big fire.
Wow.
He just barely hollered upstairs to us to get out.
So as tragic as it was, you're lucky everybody was able to...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There used to be a spring up here.
Yep, there still is.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that's where we used to get our water.
Well, they have a well down here, drilled well. That's what we're hooked to now. The spring still opened up there.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah, there were snow snakes there, and when I was a kid I called them snow snake.
I've never seen snow snakes.
Snow snake. They have snow snakes. Yeah.
Now where's
and
that?
the big barn over here, you know, at that time.
Oh, there was?
Yeah. And there was a chicken house and an ice house out the back,
Oh.
and another shed on the other side. Because we even had some cows, and we had chickens, and even some sheep. And that was all meadow there, where all that's grown up was open meadow.
Oh.
Yeah. And then across the street, of course, the river's right there.
Bouquet.
And that's up, you know, and we used to, up here, we used to keep a tent right by the river, and that's where we'd go and bathe. You know, it was kind of deep right up in there, and not so rocky. And
Well, they just filled all this in last year with the rocks. Because it kept coming up over the water, did?
Yeah. Oh, we used to be flooded out all the time. But
You've been here 2 years.
But that's, you know, in the summertime, because we used to bathe in the kitchen. There wasn't a bathroom, we had an outhouse. So in the summertime, we keep bars of soap and towels and everything in the tent.
Jump in the river.
And that's where we'd bathe and get through, you know, on a dusty day, bringing in the hay, and we'd have a lot of fun.
The cool river felt pretty good.
Right, we had a raft tied up, and you could lay out on the raft.
Was it very deep out there most of the time? Or?
Quite, yeah, right up in there. It was quite deep. Yeah.
Whereabouts is that carving? How far away is that?
Oh, that's right up around the corner.
Have you noticed any Indian being carved in a rock nearby? Well, this man did it several years ago
Yeah.
when he was a teenager. So we're going to go look at that right now.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Hi.
I saw something that looked like Indian writing
Did you?
on a tree.
On a tree? Oh, this is on a rock. So this can't be the same thing. But who knows? Okay, thanks for chatting with us.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
We are just a little ways past Ozzie's old homestead. And if you look, you can see the line coming down, and to the left of your screen, the nose and the mouth right here. This is a carving Ozzie made, Chief Joe, he called it. He was about 17. If you look close, you see Sweet written in there. The moss is trying to claim it. So we're going to talk to Ozzie about Chief Joe here, carved in the side of a rock just off the road in New Russia. Okay, here's Ozzie and Joe. Ozzie and Joe haven't seen each other for a while.
I think I chose that name because it just had a few letters.
easy to carve. Joe was easy. Okay, Ozzie and Joe reunited after all these years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Now we know you haven't changed much, but has Joe changed much?
Well, he's getting a little bit weather beaten, yeah. But
The moss is reclaiming him here.
yeah, but I guess he'll be around for a while. It's been well over a half century. I think probably last another half century.
Yeah, it's been close to 70 years because the initial in here it says Chief Joe, and it looks like a big O or something here. Or then underneath it says Sweet, and then 1936 to 30, might be 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
It might have taken you 2 years to accomplish. How did you said you had scaffolding up here and
I
everything?
had scaffolding, yeah, and I used all with a 5-pound sledgehammer and chisels. And of course I had to have the chisel sharpened every week because they'd get dull, you know. But no, I had the end of the summer, that first summer. It doesn't look like it would take that long, but it did. And, you know, I had a big, powerful right arm because I couldn't swing backwards with my left. So it was all out of balance here with a big, strong right arm and just an average left arm. Yeah.
So it's something you just decided to do, or?
Well, Gutzon Borglum was my hero. You know, I did Mount Rushmore. And there was a time there that I thought that's what I'd like to do, is be a sculptor. So this was kind of the first step. But I switched.
First of what was to be many.
Yeah, and I switched to photography. But it was a good practice. And that field there was a little more open. And in the evening, the young people would come and park their cars there and sit and talk and so on until the light got so I couldn't see what I was doing. Then we'd all go somewhere to a dance or do something. You know, it was summer vacation.
So this is what you did in the evenings?
Yeah, I come up and work here in the evening. I didn't have very little time I spent during the day. It was but long, you know, long. This daylight lasted for a long time. And all. But of course I made it sure I had it somewhere where it would be seen from the road.
Yes. So definitely got to get out here with a steel brush or something to clean that moss off. So people can make it out, because I'm sure it took me a while before I saw it. Judy saw it right away, but it took me a while before I figured out exactly where it was. There's a lot of moss growing here on the side of this rock.
That's it. Yes.
This rock is kind of protected from for most of the day, so the moss will grow here in the shade.
That beautiful log cabin, of course, wasn't here. That was just open meadow.
Across the road.
Yeah, that famous old swimming hole is right down back their backyard. Beautiful place to swim. And we could jump right off the rock cliff right into the water. It was deep enough and everything. That's when we had more time that used to be bathing down a little further down across from the old homestead. But this is where we'd all gather on weekends and so on.
Now this is about less than half a mile from your home, or
Oh yeah, barely a half mile. Yeah, we referred it to the old swimming hole, you know. And the Denton's house was there, and then right about in there was a great big barn and all. They had horses and their cows and everything right in here.
so whose property is this that you?
Oh, this was their property.
This is Denton's property?
Yeah, now that people have owned this now too.
So they own your Indian.
They own the Indian. Yeah, I dropped by and said hello. They're very nice. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So much growing up, you know. It's almost, but all the flowers are nice. But that's the logs in that log cabin are the most beautiful logs you've ever seen. They're imported from somewhere. It's a beautiful cabin. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've just spent an enjoyable afternoon with Mr. Ozzie Sweet. For those of you just joining us, Ozzie is a world-renowned photographer, and we've just been to his old haunt, so by now you know he grew up here in the Elizabethtown, New Russia area. Here's a copy of Sport magazine with Oscar Robertson and Jack Twyman, one of probably hundreds of sport covers that you did during the 50s and 60s. I first learned about Ozzie when I picked up this coffee table-sized book back in 1998 called Legends of the Field. It's classic sports photography of Ozzie Sweet, and if you can find one of these books somewhere, do yourself a favor and buy one. You've put out many books, and in fact you've got 2 more books in the works right now as we're speaking, Ozzie.
Yeah. Well, there's one called Boys of Spring, which is spring training. And I had a lot through the years. I'd cover spring training.
In fact, you did some spring training work this past spring.
And then we went down this past spring to bring it up to date, and got a lot of we went right from one spring training camp to another. And then a lot of times after they start playing, you go to one's location. You have two ball teams that you can cover, which is good. And Larry Cannelli, who's the writer, a very talented writer that did the last book on Mickey Mantle, he was along too, so we started the teamwork, and then we get together 2 to 3 times every month, and we both have other things that we're working on, but we hope it'll be out for next Christmas, be in the bookstores.
Christmas 2003.
Yeah.
I say that because next Christmas we're going to show this in years to come, so next Christmas will be last Christmas, and Christmas is past by the time some people are watching this. And the other book?
Well, the book is called, the working title now is They Smiled for My Camera, and that includes lots of show people and politicians and not just sports personalities, but just important people.
Albert Einstein.
Yes, people like that. And it's just, I kind of made it a point to try to always photograph happy situations. That was the reason I worked to always get smiles. I didn't cover tragedies or any unhappy stuff, because I figured the newspapers would cover that well enough. Well, is that our friend going by? But no, it's been good. And I'm so thankful I can still do it.
You'll be 85 on September 10th in 2003. He's still going strong, still actively out there pursuing his ongoing career. And we really appreciate you taking time today, Ozzie, on your trip up here. He's been up here on assignment to take some photos, and he took some time out to take us around and show us where he grew up and give us a little history of himself, but also of the area, because obviously the history of Ozzie Sweet in this area also takes in the history of the community.
Yes. I'd forgotten how you get used to it, but the mountains look big here, don't they? Well, for instance, out around Placid, and then when you get up a little further up near area where I live, the mountains come right in, right in.
Yeah.
Right in on you. And I was aware of that, and all our relatives that would come and visit us and all to get up in the mountains. But when you come back and realize how beautiful they are, you know, just looking out there and everything so green and beautiful. The Adirondacks are really beautiful, I think. I think as you get older, part of it is when you get older, you appreciate everything a little more. So I'm appreciating my old stomping grounds even more than I did years ago and as a child. It's a great place, and I'm so happy I had the good fortune to grow up here and live on a farm. You know. It was a good background.
It was a good foundation for your future.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned in the first tape that we did, a lot of what he learned, the life's lessons were learned in his growing up days, and it's paid off for him because this man has been successful. There are a lot of people who could take pictures, but there's very few that can, or artists, and this man is an artist with a camera. And he's a businessman because he's been able not only to make a career of it, but make a successful career, and we congratulate you on that,
Thank
Ozzie.
you, and I've had a lot of good people help me along the way, too.
Okay. One time known as a boy genius, we've been chatting with Ozzie Sweet, and we thank you for watching and supporting Hometown Cable's efforts.
An 85-year-old photographer who gained international acclaim returned to his birthplace in Essex County, New York this weekend. Jack LeDuc reports that Ozzie Sweet is proving that he's not ready for the rocking chair just yet.
Ozzie Sweet now lives in Maine, but was in Elizabethtown to look at World War I and II monuments bearing the name of his father. Ozzie remembers the area here as a child when rum runners roared by his house during Prohibition. But this Essex County lad followed a different road that saw him photograph the most popular people of his time, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, along with some of the most beautiful women around.
I worked on the staff of Newsweek just 1 year, so it's 59 years as a freelancer or self-employed and a year on a staff of a magazine. I call it 50 years without a steady job.
He shot numerous covers for Sports Illustrated and published 20 wildlife books and is working on 2 more. He also publishes annual calendars displaying classic cars and trucks. At a visit to his old schoolhouse, he recalls starting out with a Kodak folding camera. With the big change in technology, he is not one to quickly jump on the new digital camera bandwagon.
But I still shoot all of my automotive stuff, about 90% of it with view camera, and it's 4x5 and 5x7 sheet film. And I work under the dark cloth, you know, like Matthew Brady did covering the Civil War.
He said his clients still like the crisp quality large format film delivers. Now, a lot of people ask Ozzie Sweet what the success to longevity and health is. And Ozzie simply says, keep an active body, an active mind, and try to pay a little bit of attention to what your doctor tells you. Jack LeDuc, Channel 3 News in Elizabethtown.
For those beginning a career, Sweet says that there are magazines published on every subject imaginable today, which offers a huge opportunity for photographers.
White House